It's a New York institution telling the stories of the immigrants who helped make the city what it is today. But the Tenement Museum in Lower Manhattan is at risk of closing permanently. It's been shut for over 2 months, and most of its staff have been furloughed.
We generate about 3/4 of our operating costs through earned revenue. In ordinary times, that's a mark of extraordinary success. Other museums want to know how we can do so much with ticket sales, with shop sales. That now has become just a source of extraordinary difficulty. No money, no earned revenue is flowing into the museum.
The museum had 280,000 visitors in the last fiscal year and a budget of $11.5 million. Now it's just one of hundreds of cultural sites relying on fundraising to survive.
New York City has bounced back before, from a debilitating fiscal crisis in the 1970s when more than 1 million people abandoned the city, from the 9/11 terror attacks when fear kept people away, and from the Great Recession, which tore through Wall Street and the economy.
Before the coronavirus crisis, employment levels in the city were at record highs, and fourth quarter growth in 2019 outpaced national figures. Today, roughly 1 million people are unemployed, and there's a fear this outbreak will see more people leave the urban hub.
We saw what it did to the city in the 1970s. It decimated the economy. It created a spiral where, as people left, there were fewer revenues to pay for vital services, subways, sanitation, the nonprofit sector, and things got worse. So we absolutely have to make sure that that doesn't happen.
The mayor has warned tax revenue will drop by $7.4 billion over the next 2 years. To help with the budget shortfall, Governor Andrew Cuomo is pushing for $61 billion worth of federal funding. But a rebound will rely heavily on tourism.
Over the last 20 years, the number of tourists annually to New York grew from about 30 million to about 65 million. And in the process, tourism has become one of the drivers of New York City's economy, employing over 300,000 people in restaurants and retail stores and theaters. And these are real jobs. Tourism has got to get back to a similar place to where it was. And I think that the only thing that's going to get there is making the city safe from disease.
That will involve further investment in testing and tracing. And if international travellers are to return, a vaccine will have to be found.
To really have it live up to its promise as the capital of the future, which is what we are, to really have that happen, we have to be open to the world. When that's going to happen, I really can't tell you.
At the moment, the lights are out and the windows are boarded up. But history suggests the Big Apple will get its shine back, even if it takes a while. Katie Gregory, TRT World, New York.
Okay, let's bring back our guest, Rui Zhong from the Wilson Center in the US for more on this. Good to have you back with us, Rui. Now, we heard there the US jobs market really is being pummeled by this ongoing coronavirus crisis. And the last thing that the US needs is perhaps a revival of a trade war with China. Do you think that's on the cards?
I think that right now one concern that U.S. policymakers have towards China is whether it's able to make its purchase agreements as agreed to in phase 1 of the trade deal. But as China's own economy was hit very hard, this is something that's going to maybe not be something that they can depend on. But really critically hit in the U.S. is the services sector, which is less dependent on imports and exports and more sort of dependent on basically having a running services sector. And so this is pointing this aspect of economic recovery to China, it's really only telling part of the story. And like other aspects of COVID-19, the problem is a lot bigger scale and a lot trickier to solve and requires much more than the foreign policy toolbox.
It sure does. Rui Zhong from the Kissinger Institute on China and the US at the Wilson Center. Thank you so much again for joining us on the program.